David Lynch orders a milkshake. It's 2:30 p.m., and that is precisely when he sits down at Bob's Big Boy every day. It is here, at Bob's Big Boy, a quintessential American experience, that David Lynch builds his world.
I had these things for 7 years with a cup of coffee, and I would write on the napkins. It was like having a desk, and you need paper. There's a piece of paper, and you write on it when you get ideas.
Perfectly shaking up the American dream with, American nightmares, taking us to places that we've never been before, but yet feel so familiar at the same time. The extraordinary coming from the ordinary. Cinema scholars have described his artistic spirit as American surrealist. His abstract visual style and haunting sound design have allowed our imaginations to enter new realities via strange portals that show us how absurd our world can be. And he's been doing this for decades. Even though Twin Peaks: The Return was a return to greatness by this master, it has still been many years since David Lynch has directed a major motion picture. Is it because Hollywood didn't know what to do with this madman? Or is it because maybe he's almost 80? I don't know, it's a mystery. Let's find out. But actually, the journey is more important, or whatever. But yeah, what the f*** happened to David Lynch? But to truly understand what the f*** happened to David Lynch, we must begin at the beginning. The beginning began when he was born on his birthday, Montana, 1946. If you want to know anything about David Lynch's childhood, picture Blue Velvet, and you kind of got an idea of what it was, but you also don't at all. But yeah, growing up in the American suburbs may or may not have contributed to his fascination with the underbelly of America. But that's the thing with David Lynch. He's less interested in the freshly manicured lawns, and more interested in the ferocious bugs underneath, and the severed ears hidden within. As David Lynch likes to put it,
I discovered that if one looks closer at this beautiful world, there are always red ants underneath.
Growing up, David Lynch loved art, going on to study in college on the East Coast, notably Philadelphia, which was a major influence on his work. One day he was painting and he wanted to see his painting move. So he was like, hey, maybe making movies is a way to make my paintings move. So this is what brought on his 1967 short film 6 Men Getting Sick, which is a plotless piece that shows 6 men getting sick. It's just so beautiful and bold, and if you don't get it, then you are, like a Philistine or whatever. An artless fool. The next year brought The Alphabet, which is just about the most terrifying way to learn it. And through the American Film Institute, he made The Grandmother, another disturbing piece, yet oh so beautiful. And finally, there was the short film The Amputee, which, is probably exactly what you're picturing. Lynch was on the fringe, that's for sure, and he had begun filming his debut feature, originally meant to be a short, in 1971. Thanks to funding partly from Sissy Spacek, who was the wife of the production designer, Jack Fisk, and David and Sissy would work together decades later in A Straight Story, now on Disney+. But yeah, David Lynch's life and filmography never moves in a straight line. This artist embraces the twists and turns. The shoot on Eraserhead didn't wrap until 1976. Remember, he started in 1971, but he did have to take a few years off at any given time due to remaining budget issues, and having a non-traditional script. What resulted remains maybe the most challenging debut ever. It's one of the most bizarre movies I've ever seen, and I absolutely hated it at first, but then I rewatched it later on a dark and stormy night, and I was in the right mood, and it just clicked. And yeah, even if you're not sure what's going on, this movie makes you think. You can't stop thinking about that baby or whatever that is. And what about that lady in the radiator? And that haircut. During the filming of Eraserhead, David Lynch discovered transcendental meditation, which yeah, I like to take naps too. David Lynch said transcendental meditation made him feel as if heaven is a place on earth. Off of that connection, are we to believe that the world of David Lynch is actually not one of fear, but one of hope? Does it contain the American dream? David Lynch would use transcendental meditation as a constant part of his creative process, which he likened to catching a fish, in that you have to dive deeper for true discovery. So you know what? Right now, let's all do some transcendental meditation together. Here we go. And go.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
But discoveries of the American kind would have to wait, as David Lynch set off to London to make his next film, The Elephant Man, in 1980, which was produced by Mel Brooks, of all people, who loved Eraserhead so much that he championed for David Lynch. And through his beautiful direction on The Elephant Man, David Lynch would earn his first Best Director nomination at the Oscars. And so the next reasonable route was a high school comedy. Yeah, for some reason Cameron Crowe scouted David Lynch to direct Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Thankfully, or regretfully, he turned it down. He also turned down joining the Star Wars universe and said no to directing Return of the Jedi, instead focusing on Dune in 1984, which was a flop of monumental proportions, mostly because David Lynch did not have final cut, and so wound up being sickened by the studio's involvement, and called making Dune a horrible sadness and failure. Looking back, you cannot ignore the beautiful set design, but yeah, maybe Dune was not a place that David Lynch should have been focusing his energy at this time. Lesson learned, though, because after Dune, what did he do? He went back to his roots. He went back to the suburbs of America, exploring the depraved underbelly of this country that he calls home, with his masterpiece, Blue Velvet. As Lynch put it, it was a dream of strange desires wrapped inside a mystery story. But what isn't in the world of David Lynch? And by bringing to life this masterfully crafted neo-noir, surreal, suburban nightmare / beautiful dream, he earned his second Oscar nomination. He also earned the reputation as the go-to weirdo director who makes art house weirdo movies in the best way possible. Not everybody loved it. A lot of people were offended by, the way he depicts violence and sexuality. But David Lynch's films, they get people talking. Nobody's neutral. Nobody has nothing to say about a David Lynch film.
And that's painful to me, to see a woman treated like that, and I want to know that if I'm feeling that pain, it's for a reason that the movie has other than simply to cause pain to her.
He's a director, and he wants to play you like all the directors, the great directors want to do. He wants to play you like a piano, which is have you smile and then swing you right into some depression.
Yeah, well, the next time that somebody wants to play me like a piano, he'd better get some music that's worth listening to.
I think this is a good song.
Lynch opened up the 1990s with a punk rock art house adventure called Wild at Heart, starring Nicolas Cage and his muse Laura Dern, winning the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. It's another beautiful, wild, out-of-control picture that shakes up your soul with some rock and roll and makes you ponder the human condition. David Lynch just loves the mysteries and complexities of the unknown that are right in front of us. And this drew him to a sleepy little town called Twin Peaks. This groundbreaking television show premiered somehow on ABC in 1990. The show ended after a ratings sag following the reveal of Laura Palmer's killer. Eventually David Lynch fell out of love with the project and left, and you can kind of just, tell. But David Lynch wouldn't be done with his weirdo America, directing a prequel feature film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. That, like the second season, was hardly a hit, with one critic saying that it felt like the worst movie ever. But now many people are going back and looking at Fire Walk With Me, and finally they're appreciating it for what it is. But no, David Lynch was not done with Twin Peaks yet, returning for an 18-episode third season called The Return. This was the reaction the show always deserved, landing on numerous best of lists and marking itself as one of the finest seasons/miniseries in TV history. David was finally able to bring redemption to the Twin Peaks franchise.
I hate to admit this, but I don't understand this situation at all.
But yeah, let's go back to the 90s, where he had other works, like 1992's On the Air and 1993's Hotel Room, which were very short-lived and didn't exactly shake up the pop culture and leave their mark on the zeitgeist like his other works. In 1997 came Lost Highway, another mind-fuck of a movie with riddles inside of riddles, and some of the most twisted people ever put onto film. We're looking at you, Robert Blake. Lost Highway is another poetic nightmare that's kind of hard to understand, but can we ever truly understand the works of David Lynch? Mr. Lynch is a committed man who certainly knows the answers we all ask, but he's also a walking conundrum. He has said that both darkness stems from a reflection of the world, and negativity is just like darkness. So wouldn't this mean that negativity is linked to how we see the world? Then why did we also believe David when he said heaven is a place on earth? Many of us, it turns out, will follow David Lynch wherever he goes. And the fun of overanalyzing every frame can truly take you to places that you didn't think movies could. His movies are more than movies. An artist with a distinct style that can still surprise us at every turn, and we will follow him at every turn, down every strange little road. And so we followed him into 1999 as he embarked on a journey via Tractor. It was the film The Straight Story. And this one absolutely, truly feels off-kilter compared to everything else this man has ever done. Yet, David Lynch calls Straight Story his most experimental film. With a G rating and working under Disney, it was truly an odd choice. Then again, is it? David Lynch is a believer in reincarnation, and we must believe that Lynch would also want to reinvent himself in some form as an artist, to surprise both himself and his audiences. But also this Straight Story movie that is pretty much the most straightforward, normal movie ever made. Like, there's nothing necessarily, quote, weird about it. And that's what makes it so f***ing weird. Just knowing that David Lynch is behind the camera here, it makes you notice things that you never would have noticed before if you just thought this was, like a normal Disney movie. It is truly a mind-boggling experiment with cinema. Because once you go so avant-garde, the only place to go is back to the basics, which is more avant-garde than avant-garde. This motherfucker right here just out-art-housed the art house. Once again, making a beautiful film. Speaking of film, David Lynch surprised us all by becoming a strong advocate for the digital video way of making movies. And he focused on making some web shorts like Rabbits and Dumbland. It's totally Lynchian. In the year 2001, David Lynch sought to return to television and developed a pilot that would soon be weaved into a feature film called Mulholland Drive. One of the most complex and confusing, beautiful films that we can wrap our puny little minds around. David Lynch says,
I love people analyzing it, but they don't need me to help them out. That's the beautiful thing.
And yes, that beautiful thing has guided us through most of his filmography. And yes, what Blue Velvet did to the American suburbs, Mulholland Drive does to the American big cities. Specifically Los Angeles, LA, Hollywood, Hollyweird, changing the white picket fences to the Hollywood sign, showing us how they're both beautiful and f***ed up. And isn't that really what America's about? Mulholland Drive is generally considered one of the best films of this century by people who think they have the authority to declare such things. And for it, David Lynch earned his third Best Director at the Academy Awards. He again would not win, and he again would probably not care. Instead, he would have to wait for his honorary Oscar in 2019. But Nearly 20 years ago, David Lynch directed what has been his last movie, 2006's Inland Empire. Another mystery, this time with his muse, Laura Dern, along with some rabbits that he plucked from his web series. And yeah, this Inland Empire thing, I think it's like 3 hours long, made completely with low-resolution digital cameras. David Lynch kind of wanted to show people or make a point that anyone can make a movie now with the technology available. And he also wanted to show us that, through this low-resolution digital filmmaking, it makes our brains, our imaginations, our cinematic souls search for the meaning in the detail in the image instead of, just, some 4K celluloid shit showing you every little bit of everything. This way you had to search for the beauty, search for the art, which is even more beautiful and artistic anyway. This all makes sense in my head. And Inland Empire, it launched David Lynch's first ever Oscar campaign, not for himself, of course, but for his leading lady Laura Dern for Best Actress, who absolutely deserved it. But yeah, David Lynch did this unsuccessful Oscar campaign by sitting on Hollywood Boulevard with a cow. You would think that would catch the eye of the Academy, but it did not. But yeah, after Inland Empire, David Lynch, he just kinda did his own thing. Drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, making art, painting. You could see him talking to a monkey on Netflix in What Did Jack Do? And you could see him in some amazing cameos, like playing John Ford, one of the most American directors to ever live, in Steven Spielberg's film The Fabelmans. And yeah, David Lynch's cameo in this movie, it's probably the best thing about this movie. And his fee for this performance was 1 bag of Cheetos. He would also become a YouTuber in a way, keeping us up to date with the weather. Yes, that's right, David Lynch would deliver weather reports using his new love of all things digital. And yeah, there's something soothing and hypnotic about listening to David Lynch tell you if it's cloudy outside or not. Tragically, his YouTube page seems to be sitting idle and vacant like a building in Eraserhead.
Around 57 degrees Fahrenheit, 14 Celsius.
50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 Celsius.
A chilly 61 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 Celsius.
Very slight breeze blowing, 61 degrees Fahrenheit, around 16 Celsius.
Even though it seems like he's pretty much done with feature filmmaking, David Lynch still has projects in the works. Video art and music videos and other things with unknown plots and details. He is an artist through and through, and nothing will stop him from creating. Even though it seems like his health is trying to stop him. Recently, news broke that everybody's favorite avant-garde genius has been battling emphysema. And due to this sickness, he is only able to work from home. Which, yeah, is like true digital filmmaking in a way. But like I said, nothing will stop this artist from making his art. And we wish you the best, David. We are digitally sending you thoughts and prayers for your health. Get well soon. Trying to make sense of his life and career is like trying to make sense of his films. Some actually say that the original intended point of Twin Peaks was to never solve the murder, and to just explore the mysteries surrounding it. That's how we should look at all of Lynch's work. Understanding Lynch is no fun. Being confused by him is an absolute blast, if you're into this kind of stuff. So yeah, never ever ask him to explain the meaning of any of his films, because that's the point. It is unnecessary to explain what his film is trying to say. His film is the explanation. The mystery is the reason to watch. And also never ever ever suggest cutting down a scene.
What is this with everybody?
No.
What is it? Really?
Only me. It's
Why?
my fault.
I'm serious. Fucking A, man. It drives me nuts. Who gives a fucking shit how long a scene is?
Now on the verge of his 80s, I think he's like 78, David Lynch has confirmed that he is officially done with feature films. Yet he remains nothing but David Lynch. Hey, look at this. Here's a David Lynch quote that I just found.
I love my life, and I'm a happy camper. It would be nice if we were all able to fulfill our desires and live good, long, happy lives.
That's such a beautiful thought, David. Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for all of your weirdly beautiful, disturbing films. And I swear I'll never ask you what they mean, but I may ask you the weather. So yeah, nobody should give a about what the happened to David Lynch, because, you know, he's doing just fine, for the most part, except for his health and stuff. But yeah.